The Zambian government, through its Ministry of Foreign Affairs, says it has more questions to ask Russia on why one of their nationals, Lemekhani Nyirenda, aged 23, was killed fighting for Russia in Ukraine. It alleged that Nyirenda was a nuclear engineering student at the Moscow Engineering Physics Institute, but in 2020 was sentenced to 9 years in prison for an unspecified offence, according to Zambia's Foreign Affairs Ministry. Stanley Kakubo Nyirenda, a government-sponsored student, was killed in September, but the Russian authorities had just notified the Zambian government of his death. The Zambian government has requested Russian authorities to urgently provide information on the circumstances under which a Zambian citizen serving a prison sentence in Moscow could have been recruited to fight in Ukraine and subsequently lose his life. To speak more on this, we are joined by Joseph Kalibwe, Information and Publicity Secretary in the ruling United Party for National Development, UPND. One welcome to you, Joseph, and thanks for joining us on News Central Now.
Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to be able to join you and have this conversation, particularly with the fact that it's affecting so many Zambians here, and they're talking about it.
Now, Joseph, this is bizarre, to say the least. Quite very sad news there. So, what questions does the government have for the Russian authorities?
Well, what we've heard is that this young man was studying nuclear physics in Russia, but then he was involved in some drugs, and then he was put in prison was sentenced for 9 years. And then what we heard is that a few months later, what we've got to hear now is that he was put onto the battlefield, and he was fighting for Russia against Ukraine. So our Minister of Foreign Affairs was very concerned, and even us as ordinary Zambians, as us from the ruling party in Zambia, we think and we are requesting for answers to say what has happened. How is it that somebody that was in prison, a Zambian citizen, and we are very clear to say our country must demand and must get answers from Russia. We are saying that from a Zambian perspective, members of the ruling party like myself, and as Information and Publicity Secretary, we've been saying these things that people in Zambia that are concerned to say, how did our citizen find himself into the battlefield? How did he get to start fighting for Russia on behalf of Russia to fight against Ukraine? And so what we are requesting is for Russia to be able to provide answers, and to provide answers to the Zambian government in terms of what happened, what transpired, and how did this young man end up fighting for Russia in the war that he shouldn't have been involved in the first place.
Now, Joseph, do you envisage that the other nationals of Zambia, Zambian citizens in Russia, might have suffered a similar fate but are undocumented? And what are the plans against these perceived injustice?
Well, Zambian citizens are always concerned. And now they have a government that cares. Previously, we had a government that was all one for himself, every man for himself, where Zambians could be abroad and their concerns would never be spoken about. But now what has happened is that whenever there's a Zambian that is abroad, we are at home now, under the leadership of my political party, a government that cares for the people. So what we are requesting for, and what we continue to say, that Zambians who are abroad must be protected by the state of Zambia, and they must ensure that this government now cares for them, cares for their families here at home and abroad. And what we think is that we understand, the historical background between Russia and Ukraine. But a Zambian has no interest whatsoever in being involved in that war. And what we have been doing and what we are calling for is to ensure that Russia provides answers to the Zambian state, to the ordinary Zambians, 20 million Zambians that live in our country and that think they should be changed.
Now, finally, Joseph, has the family of Mr. Nyirenda been notified, and how are they taking this?
I couldn't hear that.
Now, as the family of the late Nyirenda, Mr. Nyirenda, have they been notified, and how are they taking the news of his demise in the battlefield? Hello, Joseph, are you there? Joseph,
well,
please.
The family was notified by the Zambian mission in Russia. They notified the Republic of Zambia, and that embassy also got in touch with the Zambian Foreign Ministry. And so the family has been so concerned with what has happened. They were concerned that he was jailed in the first place, and now they are concerned that how did this young man 21-year-old find himself at the battlefield? How did he find himself fighting for Russia when Zambia as a country, when Zambia as a state does not have any interest whatsoever in what is happening in that war? So the family is concerned. The family has been notified, and what we understand is that this issue, in fact, began in September, the 22nd of September. That was when the young man died. And so the news that has reached us is that the body has now been transferred to a border so it can be brought back home and buried in dignity. But the family knows, and they're very concerned with what is happening.
Thank you very much, Joseph Kalibwe, for your time and talking to us here at News Central Now. We do appreciate it.